Pain. It is a word that makes most of us flinch, a feeling that we spend much of our lives trying to avoid. Whether it is the sharp sting of physical injury or the deep, lingering ache of emotional suffering, pain is something we are conditioned to resist at all costs. Modern culture tells us to escape it, numb it, distract ourselves from it, and pretend it does not exist. But the Stoics, those wise voices echoing through the centuries, looked at pain differently. They did not see it as an enemy to be feared or an intruder to be expelled from life. They saw it as one of life's most valuable teachers, a profound force that could shape a person into someone unbreakable, disciplined, and deeply wise. To the Stoics, pain was not a sign of life going wrong. It was proof that life was happening. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, reminded himself that everything we endure has been endured by countless others before us. He wrote, "If it is endurable, then endure it. Stop complaining." There is something startlingly simple and brutally honest in this line. Pain is not a curse. It is not an exception. It is part of the human experience, and its endurance becomes the forge that strengthens the soul. Think for a moment about the way we learn. When do we grow the most? It rarely happens when we are comfortable, when everything flows easily, when life gives us exactly what we want. Comfort does not challenge us to evolve. Comfort lulls us into stagnation. Growth, real and lasting growth, happens when life disrupts our expectations, when we are pushed beyond our perceived limits, when we are hurt, and then must decide what to do with that hurt. Pain is the alarm that wakes us from our illusions and forces us to confront what we truly are. Seneca understood this well. He wrote that, "Fire tests gold, and adversity tests brave men." This was no mere poetic metaphor. It was a declaration of how adversity and pain reveal character. Anyone can speak of virtue when times are easy, but who you are is revealed in the crucible of suffering. When everything is stripped from you, your plans, your security, your illusions of control, what remains? That is where your true self is found. This is why pain is such a profound teacher. It removes the masks we wear and shows us the raw, unpolished truth of our being. And yet, most of us resist this lesson. We want life to be gentle, predictable, safe. But here is the truth the Stoics confronted: life will not bend to our wishes. No matter how carefully we plan, no matter how tightly we try to hold on, suffering will come. The question is not whether pain will visit you. It is what you will do when it arrives. Will you try to run from it, only to find it chasing you still? Will you let it crush you? Or will you, as the Stoics taught, lean into it with courage and curiosity, asking, "What is this here to teach me?" Here's a practical exercise the Stoics might give you. The next time pain appears, emotional or physical, pause before reacting. Do not immediately label it as bad. Instead, ask yourself, what is this moment teaching me? Is it showing me the limits of my patience? The fragility of my ego? The strength I did not know I had? This reframing of pain as a teacher transforms it from a meaningless suffering into a meaningful experience. You become an active participant in your growth, rather than a passive victim of fate. The modern world has given us countless tools to escape discomfort: entertainment, substances, distractions of every kind. But these tools only silence pain for a moment. The Stoic path is different. It asks us to sit with pain, to understand it, to let it teach us discipline, humility, and resilience. In this way, pain stops being a monster lurking in the shadows and becomes a mentor guiding us toward our highest potential. And so, as we begin this exploration of why pain is your greatest teacher, let us challenge the stories we have been told about suffering. Let us set aside the modern obsession with comfort and instead look pain in the eye, just as Marcus, Seneca, and Epictetus did. For within that pain lies a wisdom deeper than any book, any lecture, or any fleeting pleasure could offer. Pain as a mirror of the soul. When pain enters your life, it does more than sting the body or weigh on the heart. It reflects you back to yourself. It reveals what you value most, what you cling to, what you are afraid to lose. This is why the Stoics did not simply tolerate pain, they studied it. They used pain as a mirror. In that reflection, they could see their attachments, their fears, and their illusions. Marcus Aurelius often began his days reminding himself that pain, physical or emotional, would come, but it was his response that mattered. He wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This idea is revolutionary. It means that pain itself is not the ultimate source of our suffering. Our interpretation is. We do not suffer merely because we are hurt, we suffer because of the stories we tell ourselves about that hurt. Think about a time when someone criticized you harshly. The words alone might have been painful, but the suffering came when you began to replay them, to question your worth, to believe the insult. The Stoics would say, remove the story, and the pain changes. It becomes information, not devastation. That is the meter at work. Here's an exercise for you. The next time pain arises, instead of asking, why me, ask, what is this pain showing me about myself? Maybe it shows how deeply you care about someone. Maybe it reveals how tightly you grip a particular expectation. Maybe it shows how fearful you are of losing control. This is not about blaming yourself. It is about seeing yourself clearly, because only when you see clearly can you grow. Seneca once said, difficulty strengthens the mind, as labor does the body. Pain is the mind's gymnasium. When you lift weights, your muscles tear before they grow stronger. In the same way, emotional or mental pain tears at the illusions you hold, creating space for new resilience to form. But this process requires conscious engagement. Pain does not automatically teach. You must be willing to learn. In our modern world, we are taught to silence pain as quickly as possible. Pop a pill. Scroll on your phone. Distract yourself. But the Stoics knew that this avoidance only delays the lesson. If you want an unbreakable mind, you must turn toward pain, not away from it. That does not mean you seek out suffering unnecessarily, but when it comes, as it inevitably will, you treat it as a teacher instead of an enemy. Epictetus, who himself lived as a slave and endured immense physical suffering, taught that it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Pain, for him, was the training ground for virtue. Patience, courage, wisdom. These are not learned in ease. They are forged in the fire of difficulty. Imagine approaching pain with this mindset. This hurts, but it is refining me. This challenges me, but it is revealing my strength. This breaks me open, but it is making space for growth. Suddenly, pain transforms from a curse into an opportunity. In this way, pain becomes a mirror, a trainer, and a companion on the journey toward wisdom. The next time you face it, pause and look deeply. Ask yourself, what truth is this pain trying to teach me? Turning pain into strength, the Stoic alchemy. The Stoics were master alchemists of the soul. They knew how to take the raw, burning material of pain and refine it into strength, virtue, and inner clarity. For them, pain was not simply a punishment to be endured but a vital ingredient in becoming truly resilient. They believed that the person who learns to work with pain gains a kind of freedom that no external comfort could ever provide. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." This is one of the most powerful insights in all of Stoic thought. Pain is not a dead end. It is a doorway. What you resist and fear most often holds the very lesson you need to evolve. When you begin to see pain not as an obstacle but as a teacher, you unlock its hidden gift, transformation. Take, for example, Epictetus, who was born into slavery and endured physical abuse. He could have lived his life in bitterness, but instead, he used his suffering as a forge to shape his character. His experiences gave him the authority to say, we cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond. This choice, to reframe pain as training rather than tragedy, is the core of Stoic resilience. So how do we practice this alchemy? The first step is acceptance. Not passive resignation, but active acknowledgement. When pain arrives, instead of saying, "This shouldn't be happening," say, "This is happening. Now what can I do with it?" This shift removes the extra layer of suffering caused by resistance. The second step is reframing. Ask yourself, how is this experience shaping me? What skill, what strength, what virtue can grow from this? If you lose a job, maybe it teaches you adaptability. If you suffer a heartbreak, maybe it deepens your compassion. If you face illness, maybe it strengthens your patience and humility. Every pain carries a seed of growth, if you are willing to look for it. Here's a practical exercise. The next time you experience emotional or physical pain, write it down in a journal. Underneath it, list 3 potential lessons or strengths this pain could be teaching you. At first, it might feel forced. But over time, your mind will naturally begin to seek growth instead of drowning in despair. The third step is action. Pain demands a response. If you simply sit in suffering, you stagnate. But if you use it as fuel, it can propel you forward. Seneca taught that pain sharpens us when we engage with it consciously. For instance, if criticism hurts you, turn it into a chance to examine whether there's truth in it, and if so, improve. If life's uncertainty makes you anxious, practice focusing only on what you can control, as the Stoics insisted. This practice is like tempering steel. Each exposure to difficulty, when handled well, makes you more durable. As Seneca said, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." Your pain can either destroy you or refine you. The choice is yours. Imagine yourself like a sculptor, chipping away at a block of marble. The marble is your life, and pain is the chisel. At first, it feels harsh, even violent. But with each strike, a truer, stronger, more beautiful version of you emerges. The Stoics did not seek pain for its own sake, but they never wasted it. They saw every wound as an opportunity to live more fully in line with their values. To them, pain was not an intruder to be feared but an instructor to be welcomed. Ask yourself now, what pain in your life are you resisting? What would happen if, instead of running from it, you turned toward it and said, "Teach me"? Preparing for pain before it arrives, the Stoic practice of mental rehearsal. One of the most powerful tools the Stoics used to master pain and fear was preparation, not in the physical sense of stockpiling resources or building fortresses, but in the mental sense of conditioning the mind to expect life's inevitable hardships. They understood that much of our suffering comes not from pain itself but from being caught off guard by it. When we expect life to be easy, even small difficulties feel unbearable. But when we expect challenges, when we train for them in advance, they lose their sting. Marcus Aurelius began each day with a ritual of mental preparation. In his meditations, he wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they cannot tell good from evil. But I cannot be harmed by them, for no one can impose their ugliness on my soul." This is not pessimism. It's armor. By rehearsing the difficulties of the day in his mind, Marcus transformed them from shocking surprises into expected challenges. This technique is known as premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. The Stoics would imagine in advance the losses, insults, or misfortunes they might face. Not to obsess over them, but to neutralize their power. If you've already prepared your mind for rejection, betrayal, or discomfort, their impact is far less devastating when they actually occur. Let's make this practical. Take a few moments each morning to visualize the possible challenges of your day. Maybe a colleague will criticize your work. Maybe you'll face a long delay in traffic. Maybe an important plan will fall apart. Instead of being blindsided, you meet these possibilities with calm acceptance. If this happens, I am ready. It cannot take away my peace unless I allow it. Seneca took this practice even further. He regularly reflected on the possibility of losing everything, his wealth, his position, even his loved ones, so that when adversity arrived, it would not crush him. He robs present ills of their power, Seneca wrote, who has beforehand rehearsed their coming. Another powerful Stoic exercise was voluntary discomfort. They would intentionally expose themselves to mild hardships, fasting, wearing simple clothing, sleeping on the floor, not to punish themselves, but to train their minds and bodies to endure discomfort with grace. This practice taught them two invaluable lessons. First, that pain is often less unbearable than we imagine, and second, that happiness does not depend on luxury or ease. Here's a challenge for you. Pick one small act of voluntary discomfort this week. Skip a meal. Take a cold shower. Leave your phone at home for a day. As you do it, remind yourself, I can endure this. I am stronger than I think. Over time, these small acts build a profound resilience. Why do these practices matter so much? Because they create a buffer between you and suffering. When you've trained for pain, life's blows no longer shatter you. They land on a mind that is steady, prepared, and unshaken. This is the essence of becoming unbreakable, not avoiding pain, but rehearsing for it so thoroughly that when it comes, you meet it with strength instead of despair. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. As emperor, he faced endless pressures, wars, betrayals, plagues, personal losses. Yet he wrote to himself, if you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment. He knew that by rehearsing pain in his mind, he could master it in reality. Imagine how different your life would feel if you adopted this mindset. Instead of dreading the future, you would meet it with readiness. Instead of fearing pain, you would welcome it as a chance to test your strength. The Stoics teach us that pain loses much of its power when we face it before it arrives. When you mentally rehearse adversity, you step into each day armored, grounded, and unafraid. One of the most misunderstood yet transformative ideas in Stoic philosophy is the concept of voluntary discomfort. To the Stoics, pain was not simply something to endure when it came unexpectedly. It was something to practice, something to train with, a way to strengthen the soul against the inevitable storms of life. Epictetus urged his students to prepare for life's hardships in advance. Set aside a certain number of days during which ye shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, is this the condition I feared? In other words, deliberately choose temporary discomfort so that when pain and hardship come without warning, they do not crush you. This is how pain becomes your teacher, not in theory, but through direct experience. Why is this so powerful? Because most of us live in avoidance. We avoid pain, we avoid challenges, we avoid anything that threatens our comfort zones. But the truth is, this constant avoidance makes us fragile. Every small difficulty feels unbearable because we have not trained our minds to withstand even minor discomforts. Voluntary discomfort breaks this pattern. It teaches you that you are far more resilient than you think. It strips away your illusions of what you need to survive and shows you that happiness does not come from external comforts but from inner strength. Think of the modern applications: taking cold showers, fasting, sleeping on the floor for a night, or pushing your body in exercise beyond what feels pleasant. These are not acts of self-punishment, they are training sessions for the soul. They recalibrate your relationship with discomfort. They teach you that you can endure hunger and still be at peace, that you can withstand physical strain without breaking, that you can choose simplicity and still feel whole. Suddenly, the things that once terrified you, financial insecurity, rejection, even physical pain, lose much of their power over you. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When the soul accepts the limits of pain, it ceases to suffer." This profound statement means that suffering is magnified by resistance. When you voluntarily approach discomfort, you are no longer resisting. You are transforming pain into an ally. It becomes a classroom, and every challenge becomes a lesson in resilience, patience, and humility. Here's a practical exercise. For the next week, introduce one form of voluntary discomfort into your life. It might be taking a cold shower each morning. It might be fasting for a day. It could be putting away your phone for a set number of hours. As you do it, journal about your emotions. Ask yourself, what fears surface when I step into discomfort? How does my mind try to talk me out of it? And what do I discover about my strength when I push through? This simple practice builds not only tolerance for pain but also self-awareness. In business, relationships, and personal growth, this mindset is revolutionary. Imagine approaching a difficult conversation with the understanding that emotional discomfort is not fatal but a teacher. Imagine enduring a setback in your career not as a personal failure but as training for a stronger comeback. Imagine sitting with grief and letting it teach you about the depth of your capacity to love. These are the deeper lessons of voluntary discomfort. Pain reveals the core of who we are and shapes us into who we are meant to be. The next time pain appears, whether chosen or uninvited, try reframing it. Ask yourself, what is this pain teaching me? Perhaps it is showing you that you are clinging too tightly to material things. Perhaps it is reminding you of your mortality and urging you to live more fully. Perhaps it is stripping away your ego so that your true self can emerge. Pain, as the Stoics saw it, is not the enemy. It is the harsh but honest mentor that no one wants yet everyone needs. When people hear the word pain, they often think only of the physical, a cut, a burn, or an injury. But for most of us, the deepest and most enduring form of pain is emotional. It's the heartbreak of losing someone you love, the sting of betrayal from a friend, the gnawing emptiness of rejection, or the silent grief of unfulfilled dreams. Emotional pain has a way of lingering, reshaping the way we see the world, and even redefining the way we see ourselves. It can make us retreat, harden our hearts, or live in quiet resentment. But the Stoics invite us to view this pain differently, not as something to be avoided at all costs, but as one of life's most profound teachers. Marcus Aurelius, a man who faced the unimaginable, the loss of many of his children, constant betrayal in political life, the unrelenting weight of an empire on his shoulders, wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This was not a hollow platitude from a man detached from suffering. It was a deeply lived truth. Marcus understood that pain, especially emotional pain, stems as much from our interpretation as from the event itself. The raw experience of loss or betrayal hurts, yes, but it is our attachment, our expectations, and our judgment that magnify it and keep us in chains. By shifting the way we engage with these experiences, we can transform them into sources of wisdom. Think of heartbreak. Many of us go through it believing that our pain is proof of our inadequacy or that we'll never recover. The Stoics would ask, what does this pain reveal about your expectations? About your attachment to outcomes you cannot control. Instead of viewing the heartbreak as a punishment, they'd encourage you to see it as an opportunity to confront illusions, about permanence, about control, about the idea that someone else can complete you. Epictetus, who was once a slave, endured humiliation and suffering most of us can scarcely imagine, yet taught, it is not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. In heartbreak, the reaction is everything. Will you use it to grow, to better understand yourself and your needs, or will you let it harden you and close you off to the world? Emotional pain also reveals our deepest values. When something wounds you deeply, say, a friend's betrayal, it points to what you hold dear, loyalty, honesty, trust. Instead of allowing the pain to consume you, Stoicism invites you to turn inward and ask, how can I embody these values even more fully in my own life? This is the radical shift the Stoics teach. Pain is not simply an affliction, it is a mirror, reflecting back what you value most and calling you to live by it. Here's a practical exercise for transforming emotional pain into wisdom: journaling. Each time you feel a surge of emotional pain, instead of distracting yourself or suppressing it, sit with it. Ask yourself, what exactly am I feeling? What expectation was violated? What does this pain teach me about what I value and about what I can and cannot control? Write without censoring yourself. Over time, patterns emerge. You begin to see how often your suffering stems from clinging to things outside your control, other people's choices, the past, the need for external validation. With this clarity, you can start to release what isn't yours to carry and focus on what is, your own actions, your own growth. Consider another perspective. Emotional pain builds resilience. Every time you endure hardship and choose to engage with it constructively, you strengthen your capacity to face future challenges. Seneca wrote, "Fire tests gold, suffering tests brave men." Emotional pain is the forge in which character is shaped. Without it, we remain soft, untested, and easily broken. But through it, we learn patience, empathy, humility, and courage. It doesn't mean the pain disappears, but it gains meaning. It becomes part of your personal transformation. Imagine for a moment that your pain is not an enemy, but a guide. When grief comes, it teaches you about the depth of your love. When betrayal comes, it teaches you about discernment and boundaries. When failure comes, it teaches you humility and perseverance. The Stoics didn't believe in running from pain. They believed in walking through it with eyes wide open, extracting every lesson it has to offer. Now reflect, what emotional pain are you carrying right now? What story are you telling yourself about it? And how can you rewrite that story so that this pain becomes a stepping stone instead of a prison? This is not about denying or minimizing your suffering. It's about reclaiming your power to choose your response. And in that choice lies your liberation. Turning pain into purpose, lessons for daily living. Pain, no matter how much we try to avoid it, always finds its way into our lives. We lose people we love, we face rejection, we fail at things we desperately wanted to succeed at, and sometimes, we wake up feeling like life itself is simply too heavy to carry. But the Stoics taught that running from pain only magnifies it. Facing it with courage, understanding, and purpose transforms it. If the previous lesson was about seeing emotional pain as a teacher, this part is about using it to create purpose, to turn suffering into a tool for living a better, fuller life. Marcus Aurelius, writing in his Meditations, said, "What stands in the way becomes the way." At first glance, this feels paradoxical. How could the very thing that hurts us also be our path forward? But this is one of the most profound insights in Stoicism. Obstacles are not just roadblocks, they are raw materials for growth. Every painful experience carries within it the seed of transformation. The question is, will we plant it and nurture it? Take failure as an example. Most of us are taught to fear failure from a young age. We view it as shameful, as proof that we're not good enough. But the Stoics reframed failure as an opportunity. Epictetus advised his students to embrace challenges because they expose our weaknesses, not to humiliate us, but to give us the chance to strengthen what is weak. Failure, in this sense, is a diagnostic tool. It shows us where to grow. Here's an exercise. Think of a recent failure that still stings. Instead of replaying it with regret, write down 3 things it taught you. Perhaps it showed you where your skills need development. Maybe it revealed that you were chasing something that didn't align with your true values. Or maybe it forced you to build resilience in ways success never could. When you reframe failure as education, the pain begins to lose its sting. Grief, too, can be transformed into purpose. The Stoics did not deny the deep agony of losing someone. Marcus Aurelius himself buried multiple children in his beloved wife, yet he wrote of death as a natural part of life's cycle. He reminded himself daily, you could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think. Instead of allowing grief to paralyze him, Marcus used it as fuel for gratitude and presence. He understood that every moment with those he loved was a gift, and their deaths only deepened his commitment to live well in the time he had left. When you're grieving, the Stoic path is not to suppress your sorrow but to allow it to teach you how precious and fleeting life is. It calls you to honor those you've lost not by sinking into despair, but by living in a way that reflects their influence on you. Your pain becomes a tribute, a motivation to live fully and meaningfully. Rejection, whether in love, friendship, or career, is another form of pain that often leaves us feeling unworthy. But the Stoics would challenge that interpretation. They'd ask, was the rejection truly about your worth, or was it simply a mismatch between what you wanted and what the world offered? Seneca wisely wrote, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Rejection, while deeply painful, is friction that polishes us. It teaches us humility, helps us clarify what we truly desire, and builds resilience against the unpredictable tides of life. To make this practical, here's another exercise. The next time you face rejection, write a letter to yourself from the perspective of a Stoic teacher. Imagine Marcus Aurelius or Seneca speaking to you. What would they say? Likely, they'd remind you that your value doesn't depend on external validation and that this setback might simply be redirecting you toward a better path. This practice shifts you out of self-pity and into reflection and self-compassion. Perhaps the greatest gift pain gives us is empathy. When you've walked through the fire of suffering, you become more compassionate toward others who are struggling. You understand pain in a way that only those who have endured it can. The Stoics valued this deeply. They saw personal suffering not as an excuse for bitterness, but as a bridge to greater humanity. Marcus often wrote about acting with kindness even toward those who wronged him, seeing them as flawed humans doing the best they could with the understanding they had. So, ask yourself, how can I use my pain to serve others? Can my grief make me more tender toward those who are grieving? Can my failures help me mentor someone who's struggling? Can my rejection make me more understanding of those who feel unseen? In this way, your pain becomes more than personal. It becomes a tool for connection, compassion, and service. When we turn pain into purpose, we rob it of its power to break us. It no longer defines us as victims. It refines us into wiser, more grounded human beings. This is the Stoic way, not to eliminate pain, but to integrate it so fully into the story of our lives that it becomes one of our greatest teachers. Another layer of Stoic wisdom about pain lies in the way they turned it into a training ground for the soul. Pain, whether physical or emotional, was not to be feared or avoided at all costs, but embraced as a teacher that shapes resilience, sharpens the mind, and strengthens character. Epictetus, who himself lived as a slave and endured great hardships, often told his students that pain was the ultimate test of philosophy. He said, "Difficulties are the things that show what men are." In other words, you cannot truly know your own strength, your own courage, or your own values unless they are put to the test in the fires of suffering. Think about how this applies to our modern lives. So often, when we encounter pain, whether it is the loss of someone we love, a failure in our careers, or the sting of betrayal, our first instinct is to recoil, to distract ourselves, or to numb the feeling. But the Stoics saw such moments as a rare opportunity. They believed that pain strips away illusions and forces us to confront reality as it is, not as we wish it to be. It brings into sharp focus what truly matters and what is merely noise. This is why Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Here's a practical exercise that can help you adopt this mindset, the practice of reframing. When you are in pain, pause and ask yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me? Is it revealing an attachment I need to loosen? Is it showing me that my expectations were unrealistic? Is it helping me develop patience, humility, or courage? Instead of saying, "Why me?" shift the question to, "How can I use this?" This small change in perspective can turn pain into a tool for growth rather than a source of endless suffering. Another exercise the Stoics practiced is called voluntary discomfort. It may sound strange, but they intentionally placed themselves in uncomfortable situations, fasting for a day, wearing simple clothing, sleeping on the floor, to remind themselves that they could endure more than they thought. Seneca advised, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which ye shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" Why do this? Because when you train yourself to handle small discomforts, you are better prepared for the larger, unexpected pains life throws at you. Consider also journaling about your pain. Instead of letting your thoughts spin endlessly, write them down. Describe what happened, how it made you feel, and what virtues you can practice in response. This process helps you step back and view your suffering from a higher vantage point, like a philosopher observing the flow of life rather than being swept away by it. The Stoics also taught us that pain is universal. You are not alone in your suffering. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that every human being throughout history has endured loss, sickness, and death. This perspective is deeply grounding. When you understand that pain is a shared part of the human experience, you feel less isolated, and the burden becomes lighter. Imagine walking through life with this approach. Instead of avoiding pain, you meet it as an ally. You breathe through it, reflect on it, and ask, how can this help me become wiser and stronger? With time, you realize that pain, while unpleasant, is one of the greatest sculptors of the human spirit. If we dig even deeper into the Stoic view of pain, we discover that it's not just a personal challenge, it's a doorway to becoming more fully human. Pain is often the moment when we realize that life is much bigger than our personal desires or comfort. It exposes the illusions of control that we build around ourselves and forces us to ask the deeper questions. What do I really stand for? What is truly worth suffering for? These are the moments when the Stoics believed philosophy becomes real, not when everything is easy and predictable, but when life feels uncertain and unkind. Let's take a real-world example. Imagine someone who loses their job unexpectedly. At first, the pain is overwhelming. Fear of the future, anger at the injustice, and shame of perceived failure. Most people would spiral into despair or resentment. But a Stoic approach transforms this. You stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking, how can I use this pain to build strength and character? Perhaps this job loss forces you to develop new skills, take a career path you have been afraid to try, or reevaluate what truly matters in your work. The pain becomes a teacher, guiding you toward growth instead of breaking you. Epictetus himself lived this truth. As a slave, his suffering could have crushed him. Instead, it became his classroom. He learned that while others could harm his body or his circumstances, they could never touch his mind or his moral integrity unless he allowed them to. He taught his students, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. This mindset is more than inspirational, it's transformative. When you stop resisting pain and instead lean into it with wisdom, you gain an inner strength that no one can take away. Here's another practical exercise, the pain dialogue. When you're suffering, sit quietly and imagine having a conversation with your pain. Ask it, why are you here? What are you trying to teach me? This may sound unusual, but it helps you externalize the experience and see pain not as an enemy but as a messenger. Perhaps your back pain is teaching you to care for your body better. Perhaps heartbreak is reminding you of your capacity to love deeply. The pain begins to carry meaning instead of being only a source of misery. The Stoics also practiced premeditatio malorum, premeditation of evils. They would spend time visualizing potential hardships before they happened, losing a loved one, facing poverty, or enduring illness. At first, this might sound morbid, but it's actually empowering. When you prepare your mind for what could come, you are less shocked, less destabilized, when life delivers its blows. Marcus Aurelius wrote, begin each day by telling yourself, today I shall meet with interference, ingratitude, insolence, disloyalty, ill will, and selfishness, all of them due to the offender's ignorance of what is good or evil. Pain doesn't catch you by surprise if you've already trained your mind to expect it. Consider the story of Admiral James Stockdale, an American pilot captured and tortured during the Vietnam War. Stockdale survived years of brutal captivity by applying Stoic principles, focusing only on what he could control, his thoughts, his values, his conduct, and accepting the rest with calm dignity. Later, he said that the writings of Epictetus saved his life. His story is proof that these ancient teachings are not abstract theories, they are tools for surviving even the harshest realities. Ultimately, pain refines us. It burns away the trivial and reveals what truly endures. our courage, our integrity, our ability to love and serve others even when life is difficult. Pain will visit every one of us, but as the Stoics taught, we can choose to greet it not as an enemy, but as a stern yet wise teacher who wants to make us unbreakable. Pain, in its rawest form, is often something we instinctively try to escape. We numb it, we distract ourselves from it, we hide behind comforts and routines that shield us from its sting. But what if we are looking at pain all wrong? The Stoics believe that pain, when approached with the right mindset, becomes one of life's greatest teachers. It is the crucible in which strength, character, and wisdom are forged. Without pain, there is no growth. Without challenges, there is no resilience. Without hardship, we are never forced to confront who we truly are. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it, and this you have the power to revoke at any moment." This insight is deeply liberating. Pain is not just the wound or the disappointment itself, it is our interpretation of it, our story about what it means. When we realize this, pain becomes not an enemy to flee from, but an ally that sharpens our perspective. It teaches us where we are attached, where we are weak, and where we need to grow. Think about the most defining moments of your life. Were they moments of ease? Likely not. They were times of heartbreak, failure, rejection, or loss, times when you were stripped down to your core and had no choice but to rebuild. That is the paradox of pain. It breaks us, but in the breaking, it invites us to become whole in ways we never imagined. The Stoics didn't just preach this as philosophy, they lived it. Epictetus was born a slave and endured a lifetime of hardship, yet his teachings remain some of the most enduring lessons in resilience. Seneca suffered exile and betrayal, yet his writings shine with clarity about the human condition. Marcus Aurelius bore the crushing weight of an empire and personal tragedy, yet he left us his Meditations, a manual for enduring the unendurable. So how do we transform pain from a source of suffering into a source of growth? The first practice is reframing. When something painful happens, pause and ask, what can this teach me? How can I emerge from this stronger or wiser? This is not about toxic positivity or pretending everything is fine. It's about looking pain in the eye and demanding meaning from it. It's about becoming a student of every difficulty, not its victim. The second practice is voluntary discomfort. The Stoics trained for pain by intentionally stepping outside their comfort zones. Seneca, for example, would sleep on the floor or wear rough clothing to remind himself that luxury is not a necessity. This wasn't self-punishment, it was preparation. When real pain came, illness, loss, poverty, they were not undone by it, because they had already learned how to endure. You can try this too, fast for a day, take a cold shower, or spend time in silence with your thoughts. Each act strengthens the mind's ability to withstand discomfort. The third practice is acceptance, not passive resignation, but the active decision to embrace reality as it is. When we resist pain, we amplify it. When we accept it, we disarm it. Marcus Aurelius urged himself daily to welcome everything life brings, good or bad, because it is part of a natural order. Imagine greeting pain as a teacher at your door rather than a thief in the night. Instead of asking, "Why me?" ask, "What now?" This simple shift in mindset changes everything. Pain also strips away the unnecessary. It forces us to reevaluate what truly matters. When you're in pain, trivial concerns fade away. You stop caring about petty arguments, social media approval, or keeping up appearances. Pain cuts to the bone of existence and asks you, who are you when everything is taken away? What do you really value? What principles will you hold when life tests you the most? In this way, pain purifies. It reveals the essence of our character. Perhaps the most important lesson the Stoics teach is that pain is temporary, but the virtues it forges are eternal. Courage, patience, humility, resilience, these are not given freely. They are earned through trials. When you endure pain with dignity, you are not just surviving, you are becoming someone capable of facing life's storms without breaking. This is the kind of strength that cannot be taken away. So, the next time pain visits you, pause before you run from it. Sit with it. Listen to what it's trying to teach you. Journal about it. Reflect on how others before you, philosophers, leaders, even people in your own life, turned their suffering into wisdom. In time, you may find that what once felt unbearable becomes the very thing that equips you to handle anything that comes next. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for reflecting with me on this journey. Pain is universal, but so is the potential for growth. I invite you to share your experiences in the comments. Your insights may be the encouragement someone else needs today. And if this message resonates with you, consider subscribing to our channel. Together, let's continue exploring the wisdom that can transform our struggles into strength.